What is up YouTube? Yeah, for this video I'm going to be reacting to history of the Philippines in 12 minutes. Yeah, I've been here in the Philippines for a while now, and yeah, I just want to get to know more about the country and stuff. But yeah, if you want to watch some of my vlogs, I'll put a link to my main channel on the description so you guys can go watch, subscribe to the channel. But before we continue on, guys, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. But yeah, guys, let's go. Let's get right into it. I'm guessing they're going to be talking about the Spanish occupation and the time when Philippines was going through this, probably like not the civil war, but this chaotic moment when Ferdinand Marcos was ruling the Philippines and stuff. But anyway, I'm just guessing, guys. So let's just get right into it.
The history of what is today the Philippines started with the arrival of its first humans. It is believed they used rafts or boats around 60,000 years ago.
Oh.
With groups of diverse people settling in the archipelago.
Okay, I was not really expecting that. I thought they were just gonna start off with the Spanish occupation and just start from there and move until to the present day. But anyway, it's kind of cool that they're going back to when, like, how the Philippines, how the people actually came to the place and habited the islands of the Philippines.
Some of these groups started to develop and expand into bigger settlements, and in the next thousands of years, they evolved into what some scholars believe to be considered early states. Austronesians and afterwards speakers of the Malayo-Polynesian languages began to arrive in successive waves beginning about 4000 BC. According to the existing evidence, a jade culture existed on these lands, starting with the Neolithic era. By 1000 BC, it is believed that the inhabitants of the archipelago had developed into 4 distinct kinds of people: tribal groups, warrior societies, the petty plutocracy, and the harbor civilizations. Also important to note is the fact that the metallurgy reached the archipelago due to trade with India. Around 300 to 700 AD, the seafaring people of the islands began to trade with the Indianized kingdoms in the Malay archipelago and the nearby East Asian principalities, adopting influences from both Buddhism and Hinduism. Some cultures of present-day Vietnam showed evidence of an extensive trade network. Artifacts and goods were traded, such as glass, agate, or gold. There were also other items present in the region which were most likely imported, including ear ornaments that have been found in archaeological sites in the Philippines, Thailand, and Taiwan. The Indian culture...
There is actually no doubt that this Malay archipelago, like the Malaysians, the Indonesians, and the Filipinos, they somehow kind of related to each other in most of the ways. Just that with the religion kind of, yeah, I think the biggest thing that kind of differentiate the Filipinos from the other East Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries is because of religion. Like Philippines is made up of mostly Catholics and Christians, and Malaysia and Indonesia plus the other Southeast Asian countries are mostly Hindu and Muslims. So yeah, let's just get more right into it and find out more.
Influenced the Southeast Asian region starting with the 1st century. During the period of the South Indian Pallava dynasty and the North Indian Gupta Empire, Indian culture spread to Southeast Asia, and it reached the Philippines, which led to the establishment of new kingdoms largely influenced by the Indian culture and traditions. The date inscribed in the oldest Philippine document found so far, the Laguna copperplate inscription, is 900 AD. From
I was not expecting
the
that.
document, written in Kawi script, the bearer of a debt, Namwaran, along with his children, is cleared of a debt by the ruler of Tondo. This is the earliest document that shows the use of mathematics in pre-colonial Philippine society.
Tondo is a part
standard system of weights and measures
is
in
also Manila.
Demonstrated by the use of precise measurement for gold and other items, as well as in astronomy. From the various Sanskrit terms and titles seen in the document, the culture and society of the Manila Bay were that of Hindu Old Malay amalgamation, similar to the cultures of Java, Peninsular Malaysia, and Sumatra
Kind of interesting.
at the time. In the years leading up to 1000, there were already several maritime societies existing in the islands, but there was no unifying political state encompassing the entire Philippine archipelago. No. Instead, the region was divided into semi-autonomous city-states under the rule of the Pluto. A number of states existed alongside the Highland societies. These smaller structures alternated between being part of or being influenced by
Fuck you, man.
larger Asian empires like Maya Pahit. Around 1225, the nation of Mai, a Buddhist pre-Hispanic Philippine island state centered in Mindoro, flourished.
Okay, so here they're showing the different regions in the Philippines. You have Tongo there. I think Tongo is now where the Tagalog speakers were. This is where the mainland of the Philippines, it's regarded as the mainland of the Philippines, where Manila and other main centers of the Philippines is located. You have the Maya is where there's some of the islands plus Palawan and the islands and also the Visayans. Visayans are the Bisaya speakers of the Philippines. That's the central part of the Philippines. It's mostly comprised of small islands, Cebu, Negros Island, and Bohol Island, and there's really a lot of small islands there. And then you have Butuan, which is the Mindanao part. I think the western part of the eastern part of Mindanao, and that's just it, guys. And also the Malays. I think Malays is more influenced by it's the southern part of the Philippines. So but anyway, continue.
Island states centered in Mindoro flourished, attracting traders and shipping from the kingdom of Ryukyu to the Empire of Japan. Chao Jakua, a customs inspector in Fujian province, China, wrote the description of the barbarous peoples, describing trade with this pre-colonial state. Its people were noted for their honesty in trade.
Wow.
Much of what is now Indonesia was ruled by the Hindu Maya Pahit Empire. During the 1300s, this empire ruled over Luzon Island and the Sulu archipelago. As more and more influence was on these islands, skirmish.
What the heck? I didn't know that. That's kind of new to me. Okay, I didn't know the part of Luzon. I didn't know Luzon was actually ruled by empires outside of the Philippines. Wow.
And battles also existed. Some local tribes were waging incessant guerrilla warfare against them. Eventually, the kingdoms of Luzon regained independence from Maya Pahit after the Battle of Manila, 1365. Sulu also re-established independence,
1365.
and in vengeance, assaulted the Maya Pahit province of Brunei before a fleet from the capital drove them out. The start of the Islamic era in Indonesia.
Oh my goodness, this is mind-blowing, guys. This is freaking mind-blowing. Wow. I didn't know Tagalog, the Luzon part was actually ruled by a foreign empire. And also, there's actually a lot, guys.
Set the collapse of the Maya Pahites as its provinces eventually seceded and became independent sultanates. In 1380, Makdum Karim, an Arab trader born in Johor, arrived in Sulu from Malacca and brought Islam to the Philippines. Additionally, Sharif ul Hashim, an Arab Muslim explorer, established the Sultanate of Sulu by converting its previous ruler, the Hindu king Raja Baguinda, to Islam, and then marrying his daughter. The Sultanate of Maguindanao.
So that was how the southern part of the Philippines, especially in the Mindanao area, that's actually mostly Muslims. If you go there, you'll see a lot of mosque, and a lot of people are actually Muslims there. You will experience that. It's so different from the Visayas and also the northern part of the country where it's mostly Catholic and Christians. So it's kind of interesting, guys.
to prominence at the end of the 15th century. Meanwhile, the religion was introduced to the area by Muslim missionaries and traders from the Middle East, Indian, and Malay regions who propagated Islam to Sulu and Maguindanao. As before, when Buddhist and Hindu cultures
kinda interesting,
influenced
really
the
interesting.
archipelago, the same case happened with the Muslim culture. Upon the secession of Brunei from the Maya Pahit Empire, they imported the Arab emir from Mecca, Sharif Ali, and became an independent sultanate. The new religion started to grow roots in the Philippines through conquest and conversion of local leaders in the next decades. Moreover, Islam was further strengthened by the arrival to the Philippines of traders and proselytizers from Malaysia and Indonesia.
They Ferdinand
In
Magellan.
1521, the Spanish reached the archipelago through the expedition around the world,
Yep.
led by Portuguese-born Spanish explorer Ferdinand
Ferdinand
Magellan.
Magellan. He was actually
Claiming
married by
the
Lapu
islands he
Lapu.
saw for the Spanish Empire, he established friendly relations with some of the local leaders and converted some of them to Roman Catholicism. Because the Philippines are a large archipelago,
You know what? He actually landed in Cebu. Not landed, but he actually arrived in Cebu when he first came here in the Philippines. That was 1521. So that's actually why, a lot of, Philippines, when it comes to that time, they celebrate the Sinulog where Christianity was introduced here in the Philippines. So it's actually celebrated every year. But this year, there was not actually celebration. There was not actually a celebration because of the COVID-19. But
archipelago, the Spaniards started to explore many islands. However, the explorer Ferdinand Magellan was killed during the Battle
it's actually Ferdinand Magellan, not Magellan. That's how they pronounce it, Ferdinand Magellan.
of Mactan against the local ruler Lapu
Lapu Lapu.
Over the next several decades, other Spanish expeditions were dispatched to the islands. In 1543, an expedition was led to the islands, naming them Philippines, in honor of Philip of Austria, who became Philip II of Spain on January 16,
Yep.
1556. The
That was-
name was then
That was actually how the Philippines got its name. It was actually named after the King Philip of Spain.
extended to the entire archipelago later on in the Spanish era. European colonization began in earnest when Spanish explorer Miguel Lopez de Legazpi arrived from Mexico in 1565 and formed the first European settlements in Cebu. Through diplomatic and military annexation of some lands, incorporating local states including the Kingdom of Tondo, the Spaniards established Manila as the capital of the Spanish East Indies. In 1578,
Actually, the first capital of the Philippines was Cebu, guys. And then they had to actually relocate to Manila, and actually build develop Manila and put Manila as the first, not the first, but the capital of the Philippines because of the location and the strategic. I think they realized where Manila is more strategic than Cebu. So that's how Manila became the capital of the Philippines.
the Castilian War erupted between the Christian Spaniards and Muslim Bruneians over control of the Philippine archipelago. The Christian troops were so diverse due to generally being made up of people under the Spanish rule, including Native Americans, namely Aztecs, Mayans, and Incans, who were gathered and sent from Mexico and South America to be led by Spanish officers that had worked together with native Filipinos in military campaigns across Southeast Asia. The Muslim
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. That's actually another thing that I just learned today from this video. So actually Native Americans were sent here to the Philippines to fight alongside the native Filipinos and the Spaniards to defeat the Brunei. How do they refer to the Brunei? The Bruneians? Wow,
side was
interesting.
also very diverse, though. They were supported by the Ottoman Empire, with their troops consisting of Malay warriors and expeditionary forces sent by the Ottomans, which included mainly Turks, Egyptians, Swahilis, Somalis, Indians, and others. The conflict ended with a status quo antebellum. Just 20 years after the conquest of Luzon, remarkable progress existed in the work of colonization of the islands and the spread of Christianity. A cathedral was built in the city of Manila with an episcopal palace. Other monasteries and churches were built across islands, and more people started to convert to Christianity. Furthermore, Spanish and Mexican families settled in the new lands, creating stronger communities. Much of the archipelago came under Spanish rule, creating the first unified political structure known as the Philippines. Spanish colonial rule saw the introduction of Christianity, the code of law, and the oldest modern university in Asia. The Philippines was ruled by the Mexico-based Viceroyalty of New Spain, and after, the colony was directly governed by Spain. Many of the local people revolted in the next centuries due to some abuses made by the Spanish authorities. Their rule ended after the American-Spanish...
Yeah, actually, guys, there was actually a lot of abuse that was going on here in the Philippines. I actually was taking history class. There was actually 2 history classes that I took here in the Philippines. And those history classes were actually based on back then, like the history, actually the Philippines history, regarding the, when the Philippines was occupied by the Spaniards and how they were treating the Filipinos, and they used the cover of the church to just abuse Filipinos and forcing them to convert to Christianity. So if they don't really convert, if it's against the will to convert to Christianity, they have to be hanged, or sometimes they have to be imprisoned for that. So there was actually a lot of abuse going on back then when it comes to like Philippines ruled by the Spaniards. So yeah, that really caused a lot of Filipinos to fight against the Spanish Empire.
War at the end of the 19th century, in 1898, the Philippines became a territory of the United States.
Yes.
The United States then established the insular government to rule the Philippines. In 1907, the elected assembly was set up with popular elections.
Wow.
The U.S. promised independence in the Jones Act to the country, as the Philippine
goodness.
Commonwealth was established in 1935 as a 10-year interim step period to full independence. But before gaining total freedom, in 1942, during World War II, the Philippines was occupied by Japanese forces. By 1945, the U.S. liberated the Philippines, and the Treaty of Manila in 1946 established an independent Philippine Republic. The period of their independence
1946.
was marked by internal skirmishes and a smaller period of dictatorship, but also huge progress and development, with Manuel Roxas becoming the first president of the Independent Republic of the Philippines. The United States ceded its sovereignty over the Philippines on July 4th, 1946.
Is that Manuel Roxas or Manuel Quezon? Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I thought the first president of the Philippines was Manuel Quezon.
As scheduled. However, the Philippine economy remained highly dependent on United States markets. Roxas died suddenly of a heart attack in April 1948, and the Vice President Elpidio Quirino ruled the country until 1953. Some communist partisans existed in the islands, but were defeated in the 50s. Additionally, an important event happened in the middle of the 1960s. Ferdinand Marcos took power in 1965 and ruled until 1986. This era included the final years of the Third Republic from 1965 to 1972, and the Philippines under martial law 1972 to 1981. His reign was marked by dictatorship and instability. In 1986, Ferdinand Marcos was removed from power and replaced by Maria Corazon Aquino. Up to the present day, 5 other presidents ruled.
We have Fidel Luis Ramos, Joseph Estrada. Oh, okay, I've heard that name before. Gloria Pagal Arroyo, Benigno Simeon Aquino II. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, he was succeeded by Rodrigo Duterte, which is now the current president of the Philippines.
The Philippines.
That was kind of interesting, guys. I learned a lot from this video. So one thing that I would point out here is the first religion to enter the Philippines was the Islam or the Muslim, the religion of Islam. So that was kind of interesting. After that, when the Spanish arrived, that's when they brought Christianity into the country. So okay, yeah, I didn't know that part of Luzon was actually ruled by the foreign empire, the one that was established in Malaysia and part of Singapore and the others. That was kind of interesting, guys. Philippines has actually a lot of history, guys. This country is so rich with history. The European history, and there's actually a lot that's happened here in the country. They went through a lot before, to come to what it is today. And then Americans and the Japanese, and after that, they got independence. So they actually went through a lot. It's not like in Papua New Guinea, where my country, where the country was ruled by just Australia and German before, and also Britain. It's not like that, but like people were those countries were just ruling my country, and then during the war, after the war, that's when the Australians took over, and then they just gave the free will, like there was no bloodshed or anything. Australia just decided to give Papua New Guinea independence. So comparing Papua New Guinea to the Philippines actually went through a lot in order to gain independence. I think that was one of the reasons why it made Filipinos, the perspective to foreign countries and foreigners is so different from where I'm from. Like people in Papua New Guinea, the perspective towards foreigners and the foreign, all the foreign culture also, it's kind of different from here in the Philippines. So there's actually a lot of evidence here in the Philippines, evidence regarding the Spanish rule and the American rule here in the Philippines. There's actually a lot of places where it's so historical. You would go and see there's buildings and churches from before, the architecture from the Spanish rule, and the houses. It's still present up until this day. So that was kind of interesting about the Philippines, guys. So it's my dream to just travel the country and experience different part of the country, and just vlog about it. But yeah, if you want to watch some of my Philippines vlogs, I'll put the link to my main channel in the description, so you guys can go check it out and watch the vlogs, and yeah, subscribe to my main channel if you want to watch some of Philippine vlogs. So yeah, guys, I'll see you guys with another video.